Hey guys, it's Stephanie here with the FlowerFanatic. So in this video, my sister-in-law requested some guidelines to fertilizing. She doesn't quite know what she's supposed to do in her yard. I'm sorry, my neighbor is using the leaf blower and I just cannot wait for him to be done with it. So I'm just gonna hope that that is not too distracting in the background. When she asked me this question, it's a little bit more complicated than just a simple process. Fertilizing can vary in what kind of climate you live, if you're in a drought. I'm gonna go ahead and go through some things you should think about. And in the end of this video, I hope that you look at fertilizing a little bit differently like I have, and it's very insightful. So the first thing I would always recommend before you do anything is get a soil test, take it to your local lab. There are extension centers all over where you live. They'll send it in and they'll tell you what you're deficient in as far as your nutrients go in your soil. So I have learned in my climate that we naturally have high levels of phosphorus and potassium. So those are two of the three main nutrients in your soil to help your vegetables succeed, your trees, your plants, everything that you put in the ground, your annuals. But we always are deficient in nitrogen. So I know every single year I need to add nitrogen. So I don't want to make this video super boring, but this stuff is all so useful and informative. It's helped me so much. It's helped me walk around my yard and understand what's going on with my plants a little bit better. Then you can kind of better understand what your plants may need or what they don't need or what's going on in your garden. So here's just a basic run through of those three essential nutrients. So you got nitrogen, that just helps your plants in their leafy growth. So I'm gonna show you some of my annuals. They're not taking off super good. And I think it's because they need more nitrogen. So I'll show you what that looks like. And then you have your phosphorus, which is really important for your fruit production, your flowering, your blossoms, and then your potassium, which is the overall vigor of the plant. It helps your plant be more disease resistant and healthy and strong. And phosphorus also plays some role in that. Okay, now that I overviewed these three main essential nutrients, they each kind of manifest with deficiencies in different ways. So with nitrogen, you'll know that your plant is lacking. If it has really stunted growth, pale yellow leaves, they start to fall off. But at the same time, this can happen if you're overwatering or underwatering. So then at that point, you want to check your soil first, check the moisture level, and if it doesn't feel super soggy or super dry, feels kind of nice and moist but not overly wet or soggy, then you can kind of determine that it might be a nitrogen deficiency. So these are things to think about. This will really help you as you walk around your garden. I'm never too worried about adding too much nitrogen because it just easily depletes, it leaches through the soil, and so I know I need to add it every single year. So with phosphorus, you will also see signs of stunted growth, maybe some purple leaves. Your plants will be slow to mature and you'll have poor fruit and seed development. So with a lot of my container plants, I bought Fertilome. It has a high level of phosphorus. And so those are great because annuals are just a heavy feeder. They bloom all summer long, especially when the heat sets in. So I want to make sure I keep feeding those annuals with a lot of phosphorus. Last but not least, some signs of a potassium deficiency might include weak stems, browning in the leaves, just because it's so vital in producing a strong root system, strong stems, the overall vigor of the plant. Okay, now that you've gotten your soil test and you have an understanding of your nutrients, the next thing you want to consider is what kind of plants do you have in your ground? What kind of trees are you buying? Perennials? Or do you have a lot of annuals? All of these things will play a role in your fertilizing. So if you have been following along on my channel or you're new to this channel, this has been my toughest year of gardening yet. It's just crazy how dry our soil is. We've been in a drought for 3+ years now and there is just nothing in there. I water some of my flower beds and it just is gone. So I know you're probably wondering how this relates to fertilizing, but I have a lot of big, huge established trees. Even though it's not really showing signs of drought, it definitely needs water. I'm not gonna do it today. I've got to go buy a soaker hose, but I'm definitely gonna wanna saturate these 18 inches deep, get them really nice and wet underneath, because I'm having so much drought stress in my yard right now that since they're probably soaking up all the water, it's making everything drier around here. And so water's not staying as well in these flower beds. So I've had to hand water a lot, but I'm gonna show you what drought stress looks like. And you can see that some of the leaves are starting to curl up and burn. This new growth, I didn't realize this and I've been hand watering a little bit. The new growth is looking a little bit better, but when they're experiencing drought stress, I have to add more fertilizer. So this one is looking really, really bad, and I didn't discover it until all of these leaves started to dry up. So I have been watering them more deeply. So to help my plants and my perennials and my trees that are dealing with drought stress, I'm just gonna add some nitrogen, some fertilizer. This is really gonna help it recover. I'm gonna go ahead and just sprinkle it around. This tree is small, so feed 3 pounds per inch of trunk diameter. So that looks about an inch. And this bag is 8 pounds. I'm like, this is crazy. I can't use a whole bag for one tree. So I'm not gonna use probably that much. I want this to go a little bit further, but you know, I just say some is better than none. I'm gonna go ahead and just put it all around. This stuff stinks so bad. Every time I use it. Okay. There we go. And then to also compensate and keep the moisture in this drought, I'm just going to add some heavier mulch right here and put it around the tree. I would also suggest putting some compost around your tree. I don't have any. Next year, I'm going to double up so I can have it throughout the year because it would be so useful. I love using compost because it's that all natural organic material. It's more sustainable and it's just great stuff. Okay, I just put a nice thick layer of mulch around this tree. Did it drive you guys nuts that I didn't pull up that weed? Right now, I'm gonna deal with that later. I'm just working on trying to get this tree looking better. They're pretty resilient. I think that it is gonna recover. The leaves are still bending nicely, so the only signs of stress is really in the leaves. Okay, before I get to talking about what I'm gonna plan on doing the next year, this is another thing that you should definitely think about. So there are plants out there that are more heavy feeders, need a little bit more fertilizing. Annuals fall in that category. They tend to need the most fertilizing. Roses are some of those that are heavy feeders just because they bloom all summer long. You know, if you have a rose, they just keep on coming. Lupin, delphinium, foxglove, so all of these ones require more fertilizing, and also that depends on if you want more blooms or not. If you don't really care that much, you don't have to do this necessarily, but I want to get the most out of my plants, so I'm willing to do it. Okay, so let's go walk around and show you some of these heavier bloomers and ones that I don't worry about fertilizing too much. Think about in your head if it looks like it's looking pretty healthy or if it might need one of those nutrients that we talked about, some of those signs and symptoms. So these are my incredible hydrangeas. They are doing absolutely incredible. But to me, look at them. What are you thinking? They are just looking really healthy to me. So what I did with them this spring is I put a layer of compost, I put some mulch, but underneath the mulch, I put that plant tone fertilizer right there. I didn't put a lot of it, and they're doing super well. They're thriving. They do get a lot of moisture right here. They don't tend to dry out, which has been really, really helpful. I actually have been watering them, hand watering them more than the other ones because I know hydrangeas need a little bit more water. But I don't think I'm gonna do anything different next year. I've just been so impressed with these hydrangeas. They are handling my most challenging climate yet. Like, it's just so amazing. Can't say good enough things about them. They are a little bit leggier because they're younger, but they'll develop more stems. But I don't care because look at it. It's so pretty. So look at this rose. So what do you think might be going on? There are some pale yellow leaves there throughout. I got some drying right here. So I'm gonna fill the soil right now. It doesn't feel too wet. I haven't been watering it too much, and it's on a raised bed right here, which tends to dry out a little bit faster than the ones in the soil. So I don't think it's an overwatering thing. I also don't think it's an underwatering thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add some of this plant tone. So this will be my second feeding this year. Actually, I don't even remember if I fed it the first year. So it could definitely benefit from some of this fertilizer. So let's just go ahead and spread some of this around. I'm gonna sprinkle it. I know I'm not measuring, but I just kind of eyeball it at this point. So I don't think I will have to do this for the rest of the year. Oh, goodness. Look at that cobweb. I actually think a black widow's hiding in here. I'm scared of black widows. Black widows? Black widows are my biggest fear. Besides hornets, because you know I'm allergic to those. Right here are my first bare root roses. One's over there, one died here. So look at that purple coloring. That could mean it needs some more potassium, but also rose leaves can come out purple sometimes at first and then turn green. But just with all that drying, the pale yellow, and this area, for some reason, this area of my flower bed just seems to erode really easily, has a lot of rocks. I don't know quite why. I wish I knew the answer to that. If you guys know why, I would love to know. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fertilize these roses again. They definitely look like they could benefit from it. I wonder how wet the soil is. The soil is pretty wet, so I might lay off on the watering a little bit. You want to make sure you don't over fertilize. That could be a problem too. Okay, so I'm going to show you some roses right now that could look like they need some fertilizer, but I think it's something else. So they are not doing very good. Look at them. That leaf is drying out. This one is starting to really be weak. This is definitely, I think, because they're getting overwatered. I put my finger in here and it's just been so wet all summer long, and roses do not like to be overly wet. So I didn't realize it, but my husband had the sprinkler system going on, so they were getting watered by that. And then we also have some sprayers in these flower beds, so they were just getting watered so much. So when I started to realize they were getting too much water, I started laying it off, and this new growth is looking really good. It's nice and dark green. So it's bouncing back. Just overwatering is a problem too. These are my annual flowers that I put in here until my snowball viburnum gets big, but everything in here just looks really good. I'm not too worried about adding any more nutrients. Look at how bright and green all of those leaves look. My black and blue salvia is starting to bloom, but it's kind of funny. You can kind of tell where the amaranth is getting more sun because it goes taller and then lower. Anyways, really happy with what's going on here. So here are my annual potted containers, which I'm gonna kind of start leaning towards. I don't want to fertilize a lot of annuals. It's just too much work, but I don't mind doing them in potted containers. But all I've been doing with these is I've been fertilizing them with Fertilome about every 3 or 4 days, or if I can't get to it, once a week. You can dilute this if you want to do it more or less. I just use the potting soil, but I'm really happy. Oh, my creeping Jenny is finally starting to climb. And then the canna lily just keeps reblooming, so I have to deadhead this. But this calabrosha has taken a little while, but I can see it's starting to climb a little bit. I'm looking really pretty. This canna lily, more lilies. It's been doing this for a good month, so it's gonna fill in. My sprinkler actually broke off half of this, unfortunately. It was nice and full. Here in these garden boxes, I put brand new Fertimulch and topsoil this year, so it has a lot of that nutrient-rich soil. Look how much these zinnias are loving this soil. They're so pretty. And the grasshoppers didn't get to them. Okay, now that we've walked around my yard, hopefully you have learned a few new things. I know there's some awesome videos out there, but I'm just gonna kind of tell you my plan going forward. So in the spring, I add compost every single year. My goal is to get it to every flower bed. I have a cutting garden this year. I'm kind of steering towards a more perennial cutting garden that's gonna be a pollinator garden, so my life's a little bit easier. I do not love fertilizing. It's not my favorite thing. I don't mind fertilizing my potting containers, so we'll see what happens in my cutting garden. Maybe I'm just feeling a little tired, a little burned out with this heat. So I'm gonna do that. And then with my roses, those heavier blooming flowers that are heavy feeders, check out the ones you have in your yard and figure that out. I'll probably go ahead and fertilize them twice a year. My delphiniums, I'm gonna do it after their first flush of blooms in summer and in spring. Also, cover crops are pretty awesome. You can plant them in fall, and over winter and in the spring, they'll add a lot of nitrogen to your soil, and then you kind of cut them down and they'll die off. I'm definitely not gonna do that. That's way too much work. So my ultimate goal when I'm trying to create nice soil is creating something that is a little bit more sustainable. So compost is more sustainable. Adding mulch, it breaks down slowly and makes your soil nice over time. But to change the structure of your soil takes a long time. So you just got to be diligent every year, and every year will improve a little bit, especially if you're dealing with very challenging soil like clay or really sandy that drains really fast. I don't know, it kind of depends on where you live. But that is my ultimate goal. And then, like I said, I like to use the Espoma products, the Plant Tone. They actually have fertilizer just for roses. I kind of ran out of that, so I use my Plant Tone. Okay, so I'm about done with this video. I know it's been super long, but like I said, the annuals are gonna need the most fertilizing. Your heavy feeders are gonna need more fertilizing than those low feeders. So if you want a more low maintenance yard that doesn't require a lot of fertilizing, put in those low feeder plants. Anyways, I'm deciding if I'm gonna have the energy today to go soak all those trees. I don't think I'm gonna, so I'm gonna maybe do that tomorrow. Who knows what next year will hold? I might have to fertilize a little bit differently, but with all this knowledge, all these insights, you can kind of act accordingly each year. So I hope you guys liked this video, found it helpful, and have a great day gardening. Bye.